Hey guys, so you read that title. Is it problematic to lay your baby hairs? Before we get into that, let's briefly talk about texturism. Texturism is essentially a form of discrimination in which people negatively view certain hair textures while positively viewing other types of hair textures. Of course, in the world that we live in, texturism often involves the preference of looser hair textures, namely bone straight hair and loose curls over tighter curls and kinky hair. Those of you that are familiar with the hair typing system will know that type 1 and type 2 hair are on the looser end, and type 3 and type 4 hair are on the tighter curl end. You can look at texturism in one of two ways, one being the fact that overall society approves of type 1 and type 2 hair patterns in a way that it doesn't in regards to type 3 and type 4 hair. When I use the word approve, I mean that society accepts and expects, keyword expects, these hair textures, especially in formal, important settings such as job interviews and the corporate world in general. Women are even expected to have these looser hair textures if they want to be deemed beautiful. Do a quick Google search of the phrase beautiful hair and you'll get images like this of type 1 and type 2 hair. Again, I'm speaking about society as a whole. Globally, these are the general sentiments that people have. Now that's the first way that you can look at texturism. But what about the second way? Well, the second way is to see how texturism works in a single community or in a smaller sect of society. Let's zoom in and look at communities in which you generally only see type 3 and type 4 hair. It is pretty clear that type 3 hair and even looser type 4 hair like type 4A hair is seen as being more beautiful and desirable than type 4 hair, especially type 4C hair, which is the kinkiest. This trend should not be surprising to anyone since smaller communities often mimic the society they are a part of. Society as a whole prefers looser hair textures, thus, this type of texturism is propagated in smaller communities. We obviously live in a world that is Eurocentric, that prefers Eurocentric features. Looser hair is in closer proximity to European hair, and for that reason alone, it is falsely seen as being more desirable. Many popular natural hair tutorials either feature hair that is less kinkier than 4C hair or kinky hair that is being manipulated to look less kinky, i.e. to look as if it has a looser curl pattern. Many brands largely work with women who have looser curl patterns as well. However, there are many 4C hair natural bloggers that showcase the beauty of 4C hair, which is great to see. The natural hair community should and does have enough room for all types of hair textures. 4C hair is beautiful, versatile, and should be celebrated just as much as any other hair texture. Now, when it comes to baby hairs, I'll say this. Baby hairs are a trend. Laying your baby hairs, no matter what your hair texture is a huge trend that has been around for years. It's okay to follow this trend. People often get really creative when they lay their baby hairs / edges, and it's cool to see. In my opinion, things become problematic when you feel like you have to do them. When you feel like it's compulsory to lay your baby hairs, I think it's time to take a quick step back and ask yourself, why? Let's say that you have very kinky hair and you are rushing out the door. I think you should feel more than comfortable with not laying / slicking your baby hairs down, especially if it's going to make you late to wherever you're going. If you feel like you cannot leave the house without manipulating your baby hairs, then there might be an issue. I'm a words person. I like to kind of assess the origin of the words and language that we commonly use. Don't you think that it's kind of odd that certain products used to lay edges are called edge control? I'm not trying to be fake deep here, people, just hear me out for a second. The word control suggests that natural hair edges are this wild, untamed thing that needs to be regulated. This reminds me of the language often used to describe Afro hair in general. Afro hair was / is seen as being this wild thing that needs to be managed, aka controlled, by perm or hot tools. This is just some food for thought. By the way, on this topic of perm, there are those that actually perm their edges or use a texturizer on them, even though the rest of their hair is natural. Oftentimes they hide this fact. As we now know, perms and texturizers, which are targeted to women of color, are made up of many toxic chemicals, which adds another layer to all of this. Natural hair, be it the edges or the entire head of hair, does not have to be tamed as if it is a wild animal, or laid down to fit unfounded standards of beauty and standards of what is considered to be presentable. Having your baby hairs be in a kinky, non-slicked back state should not be something that gives you anxiety. You should regard baby hairs as being a trendy thing to do, not something you have to do to be seen as being presentable or beautiful. How messed up is it to tell someone that in order to be presentable, forget beautiful, presentable, they have to manipulate their hair texture? To those of you that are natural, remember the days when you felt like you had to have your hair permed or flat ironed in order to look good? Once you went natural, you learned that that is not the case. Don't let history repeat itself by thinking that you have to lay your baby hairs at all times. After I got the idea to make this video, I came across a BuzzFeed article written by Patrice Peck about this topic, and I love that she included images of women with their edges unlaid, and they all look so amazing. Their hairstyles look very beautiful and complete. Long story short, sometimes lay your edges and sometimes don't lay them, especially since they look really good in their original kinky state. Just brush your natural hair into a bun and keep it pushing. You look just as good. Thanks for watching and subscribe.